How's it going, buddy? Welcome to Grue, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely, man, definitely. Oh wow, that's awesome. I love like bat the background looks great.
Thank you.
And well, the first thing I want to start asking you real fast right off the bat is basically like when did you first start making films? Like what drew you to that world?
I made film as a kid. Like a lot of people, I had a crummy home movie camera, so I made some garbage movies with my siblings when I was a kid. And then I went, no offense to my younger self, but I don't think they were any good. And then I went to film school, but not for film production, for like cinema studies. So I would just watched a lot of movies in college, basically. And
Hmm.
then didn't really start making movies until a couple of years after that. And I really started as a screenwriter, right? So I really started by writing scripts, and then that led to sort of everything else. So probably didn't really start to do it until my mid to late 20s, to be honest.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge horror fan. Like I love horror films and horror books. And when did your passion start for horror?
So when I was a teenager, as a little kid, I was terrified of horror. As a teenager, I got really into it. I was trying to think of like the first horror movie I saw and loved, and it's lost to my memory. So I will say that definitely Alien and Aliens and Alien 3 were huge for me. Definitely Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness were huge for me. Texas
Oh
Chainsaw
yeah.
Massacre, Hellraiser, like all that stuff. I probably saw all that, when I was like 13, 14, and it was all the gateway into the genre for me. Definitely.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, those are classics, yeah. And like what about horror books too? Like
Oh
what
yeah.
kind what horror books did
Yeah,
stand out for you
so
most?
around the same time, I probably started reading Anne Rice and Stephen King at almost exactly the same time. And then very quickly after that, I got into Clive Barker and H.P.
Nice.
Lovecraft and
Nice.
just all the classics, probably around that same time. But I couldn't tell you who or how that happened. It just happened.
Okay. Uh, I thought I was seeing things at first, but that face is actually moving.
Oh, it's moving. Oh, it's moving. Don't worry. It's not just you.
I was like, wait a minute. I was like, is it me or is that face like moving? And so now this series that you made the first word on horror, what inspired this? Like, what inspired you to pick the five au authors that you picked?
Yeah, so it started. So one of the authors, it's not one of the review episodes. So one of the authors, his name is Laird Barron. He's got the eye patch if you see him in the trailer. He's a friend of mine. And I knew his life was strange and extreme. Like he grew up in Alaska. He raced the Iditarod, like the dog sled race. And he, a couple of years ago, got very sick and he almost died. He recovered.
Oh,
But I was like, oh, somebody needs to put Laird on camera and get him to talk about his life and his work and himself. So so I did that, and then I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. I was like, oh, well, we did this interview with Laird. What's now what? And my producing partner on the show saw it and was like, oh, this is great. We should turn it into a series. Let's go talk to other horror writers and we'll do the same thing. We'll get them to tell their stories about their lives and talk about their work. And so it really started with the Laird episode, and then expanded from there.
oh wow. Okay, nice, nice. And what? How did you get like the ball rolling on it? Like, I mean, you definitely filmed a lot of stuff, and to get the authors on there to talk and share their stories, and how did you put everything together
Together.
and
Yeah.
get it going?
So sort of in a piecemeal way, really. Like, we started with Laird and that was pretty easy because I just sent him an email and was like, hey, do you want to do this? And he said, okay. But then, after that, then it's like, okay, well, who are we going to approach next? How are we going to schedule them? Like, what, and it took a while. I mean, it's not like we shot them all in a week. We've been doing the interviews over the course of like, I mean, over the course of the last like year, basically. So,
Okay.
we would go and we'd shoot one, and then you go and you edit it, and then, try to schedule the next one, and that might take a couple months. So it's really, it's a slow but steady process, really.
Oh wow, nice. Okay. And like what with these stories and the series, like it's definitely like a mixture of like real life horror, fictional horror. It's like all different kinds of horror. And that's like so awesome for like diehard horror fans like me. And what do you love most about like all the mixtures of different horror that's in this?
Oh, I mean, I almost love most that it is that mixture. I mean, I think it's a series that it's I mean, I'm quite proud of it, I have to say. It's a series that is like both a documentary series and a horror series, and as you say, it
Mhm.
contains true stories of horror, it contains fictional stories of horror, we've got ghost stories, we've got, I mean, it
Yeah,
kind of has everything. It's really
yeah,
like
definitely.
if you are a fan of the genre, there will be something for you somewhere somewhere in this series for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And what did you love most about making this series, about filming it?
Um, Two things. The first is probably pretty obvious. It's just great to sit and have conversations with interesting writers. I mean, it's just doing the interviews is a lot of fun. It's nerve-wracking because it's like, I mean, you interview people. Invariably,
Yeah,
I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna forget to ask something. And then
yeah.
always the next morning I'll wake up and be like, well, I should have asked that question. Screwed that up. But it was, I think they all turned out fine. But every time the next morning I was like, oh, well, it's too late.
I'm the same way, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but still, it was great. And then the second thing, has really been the editing process. We've got a great editor on this project named April Merle, who my producer Will Battersby has worked with before. She's
Hmm.
great, and she's and working with her and the rest of the team to like get the interviews into the right state to figure out the way to get the stories to intercut with them has been a really creatively rewarding process.
And by making this show, the series, was there any like story that stood out to you the most, like that made you go, "Oh wow, like really? Like that happened
Um,
or something like that?"
I mean, yes, a number of them. I mean, almost every episode has a moment like that. I'll pinpoint one. It's in the last author is Mariana Enriquez. She tells stories about growing up in Argentina under a dictatorship. And her stories of her youth, I didn't know any of them, and all of them are like, oh, these are crazy stories. So I won't tell you
Mm.
what they are. You just have to watch the episodes. They're great. Yeah.
Oh wow. And like for any non-horror fans that happen to watch this, what what are you hoping that they take from watching it? Like they go into the horror world completely blind.
Yeah, I mean, I think I hope non-horror fans will watch it because it really, I mean, it's a series about horror, it's a series for horror fans, but it is also honestly a series about just like the nature of human creativity. So even if you're not a
Hmm.
horror fan, I think you'll probably get something out of the series. Like my mom, for example, not a horror fan, she's been enjoying watching it. So if my
Oh,
mom can
good.
handle it, I think non-horror fans can handle it. And my hope is that they would come away with it with the same thing that I hope horror fans come away with it, which is that like maybe you
Hmm.
haven't heard of some of these authors and maybe you go out and you try to read their work or you discover something new that you love, basically is my hope.
Okay, okay. And basically, where could once the series is out and available, like where could fans watch it? When is it coming out?
Yeah. So the series premieres the first week in February, so next week. You can go and watch it on our Substack, which is called I forgot it. It's called Etch Studio. Wait, hold on. Etchstudio.substack.com is the name is where you can go to watch it. Um, yeah, and already up there, there's a bunch of clips that you can go and watch now if you want to just give it a little sample and see, but that's where the series will live. Yep.
Aw- Awesome. And the last thing I'll basically ask you is like, where can fans follow you at?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not on a lot of social media at the moment. So if you want to know what I'm up to, probably the best thing is to go to that Substack because I'll post stuff there. So that's the place to find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and it was really great meeting you and chatting about horror, like my favorite thing to talk about.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you. Thank you so much.